hello. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, perfect. Um, welcome to Congressman Josh Riley's town hall here at SUNY Oneonta. Yay! Tonight, we're so lucky to be hosted by this incredible university. Thank you so much to the entire SUNY staff and team for making this possible. It wouldn't have been possible without all of you. And hello, New York 19. I said it once before and I'll say it again. Thank you all so much for taking the time tonight to join us. We're so excited to be here with you together, to hear your questions and priorities, and to hear from the congressman about his work and for our district while he's here and down in Washington, D.C. Before we get started, I realize I didn't introduce myself in my remarks, so I'll tell you who I am. I'm Georgina. I am our Deputy District Director over in our Leeds office in Greene County. And so a lot of you up here have probably met my team members, Eric Ball and Evan Maslin, who work in the Central region and Southern tier. I'm over holding it down for all of us in the Hudson Valley and Capital region. So if you're ever out there, please swing by and say hello. Our addresses are up here. And before we get started, I'm going to go over a couple of just general housekeeping items. First, if you need anything throughout the night, please find a member of our team. We're all wearing these name badges, some on a lanyard, some pinned, but that's how you can identify us. And we'd be happy to help you and get your information if you have a question or issue that needs follow-up. Second, restrooms, as many of you probably already know, are located in the main hallway where you entered for check-in, just on the right. And finally, in case of emergency, look around the room. You can see the red exit signs. You can go either direction, back the way we came or out through these doors down the hall is a second exit. And lastly, you are more than welcome to film or take photos, but we ask that you don't block others' views and remain seated while doing so. We'll bring out the congressman in just a moment, but first, I'm excited to introduce you to three of your friends and neighbors from around New York 19 to share a bit about their passions. So first, I would love to welcome Gary Flaherty, who's the Chief Administrator of Oneonta Veterans Outreach Center. Welcome, Gary.
Wow, what a crowd. Good evening, everybody. I'm a retired Command Sergeant Major from the Army and have been a veteran since 1984. And before I begin, I would like to have all the veterans stand up and be recognized. First, I want to thank the Congressman for allowing me to speak to the outstanding support he continues to show for our veterans, widows, and families. I've been on a Veterans Advisory Committee since 2007, when I was appointed by now Senator Gillibrand. There have been congressmen and women from both parties. Therefore, I think I have the experience to report how impressive the support from our current Congressman, Josh Riley, is. A few examples: when a bill was raised in the Congress to cut benefits and health care by 22% or $30 billion from the budget, our congressman voted no. He supported legislation providing benefits for veterans exposed to the toxic waste while serving in Iraq, Afghanistan, and other areas in foreign lands. He voted to eliminate copays for preventive services for cancer, immunizations, and mental health. How could they even consider something like that? He's recently introduced a bill to help veterans with food security and job protections. This expands the SNAP program to include our veterans who are low income or disabled. Expand vocational training for the disabled veterans with service-connected disabilities. Supports legislation that will study the effects, and this is near and dear to my heart, because I know veterans suffering from Agent Orange exposure causing liver flukes, which is a deadly disease that some of us Vietnam vets, some of our veterans from Vietnam are suffering. However, most important, Congressman Riley admits that he has not served and not totally familiar with all the issues we veterans deal with. Yet he is organized and is committed to using our advisory committees to guide him as he takes on the major issues affecting our veterans community. This was evident yesterday as we gathered in Binghamton. He intently listened to all of us and asked pointed questions and committed to use our committee to guide him on his way to helping our truly deserving veterans. Again, I thank you, Congressman Riley.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Gary. Next, I'm excited to introduce your city's mayor, Mayor Mark Drenick. Again, mayor of our host city tonight, Oneonta. He's also a supporter and former staff member of Job Corps. So Mayor Drenick, you're up.
Job Corps. Job Corps changed my life. I worked at the Oneonta Job Corps Academy for 8 years. I was lucky to share the responsibility of ensuring the success of hundreds of students in realizing dreams that would not have been. Dreams that became reality through the dedicated support of dozens of motivated, caring, and thoroughly committed people, good people. There has been no job that I've had, barring the current one, that has been more satisfying, more heartening, and affirming of the potential in people. To see the transformative nature of those students receiving diplomas, sometimes the first in generations, and such marketable skills that they will always be employable. Hard skills, in-demand skills, and soft skills, punctuality, work ethic, integrity, and confidence. Confidence to know that you can succeed, that nothing is beyond your grasp, that you just need to reach a little further. My years in Job Corps changed me for the better. It invested me with a newfound commitment to the welfare of our next generations, ensuring a brighter future for our children and those of our neighbors is a reason for government and for the creation of government programming that helps achieve those goals. Job Corps was a gift to our nation provided by Congress in 1964. And our representative, Josh Riley, understands the role of Congress in any decision that would impact the funding or the future of the program. When the Department of Labor announced a paused phase and plans to shutter centers and cast their students to the wind, he signed 2 bipartisan letters demanding the immediate release of funding and a stop, break, and full reverse on the shutdowns. And then he backed it up in Congress. He backed it up with the Riley co-sponsored HR 2281, the Strengthening Job Corps Act, a bill to protect funding, tighten oversight, and keep the doors open. Keep the doors open. Job Corps' logo is a ladder on a shield, an emblem of the United States, and the sturdy rungs to take you up, to reach those dreams of employability and a job and a family in a neighborhood, a community, and a government that works for all the people. And especially for those for whom that ladder is so important. Congressman Josh Riley gets it. And on behalf of all who care deeply about this program, its students, and our community, I applaud him and I pledge all the help we can offer. We've got your back.
Thank you so much, Mayor Drenick. Next, I'd like to invite out Carol Miller. She is the Executive Director of the Alliance for Manufacturing and Technology in Binghamton, serving 8 counties in the Southern Tier. Welcome, Carol.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And good evening to everyone. Let me begin by thanking Congressman and his team for their outstanding support for manufacturing in our region. Congressman Riley has shown what it means to truly listen and stand up for the needs of the manufacturers. And I'm here tonight to say thank you and tell you how much that support means to us and how much it matters to the region. I'm Carol Miller. I'm the Executive Director of the Alliance for Manufacturing and Technology. We're the Southern Tier MEP, which is the Manufacturing Extension Partnership Program. We're part of a nationwide network. There's a center in every state as well as Puerto Rico, and we have a singular mission of helping manufacturers be more productive, profitable, and competitive. For me, this work is really personal. I began my own career in manufacturing about 40 years ago, and over that time, I've witnessed firsthand the long-term consequences of offshoring, lost jobs, weakened supply chains, missed opportunities. But the pandemic was a real wake-up call for us. It reminded us all on how important manufacturing is and how essential it is in the backbone of our economy, the driver of resilience, and a cornerstone of our national security. Now is the time to fully commit to rebuilding our manufacturing base, an effort that directly aligns with this administration's priorities to strengthen domestic supply chains and restore America as an industrial capacity. About AMT, just a little bit on why we're so important in supporting manufacturers. As we work with small to mid-sized manufacturers over the last 5 years, AMT alone in our Southern Tier region has done over 456 projects with 131 different manufacturers. Companies like Custom Electronics, Astrocom, Ioxys, and many, many more. We've helped create or retain over 4,600 jobs, supported over $690 million in increased or retained sales, enabled $14.5 million of cost savings, and leveraged over $90 million of investment. That's over $800 million of economic impact. And we're just part of a much greater network that has, for manufacturers, we have as a nation and MEP worked with over 35,000 manufacturers, reported 15 billion in sales, 5 billion in new investments, and over 108,000 created or retained jobs. It's a real impact we have. It's measurable and meaningful. For every dollar that is invested in the MEP system, we return $14 to $15 in the economic impact. The MEP program is a very smart investment. It supports the administration priorities around reshoring, supply chain, technology adoption, workforce development. And more importantly, it meets manufacturers where they are with trusted, practical, and affordable support. require continued funding. Our funding was cut off on April 1st, and Congressman Riley was able to get that rescinded as part of the work that he's done, and we've gotten a stay. We have so much more work to do. We have a stay until the fiscal year in September, and we're working to get funding fully restored for the next budget year. Congressman Riley, his leadership has also come at a really critical time. He's on the Ag Science and Technology Committees, which has positioned him to influence and allocate resources to manufacturing in the region. He has also held several press events for manufacturing as well as for the continued funding of MEP. He has formed a Space Science and Technology Advisory Board comprised of local industry leaders. Its mission is to guide the federal and local policy to strengthen manufacturing in our region. He has also endorsed the Jobs Act because the three priorities right now we have in manufacturing are around supply chain, workforce, and technology. And the Congressman has voted for a number of different initiatives that have bolstered economic impact. Congressman Riley has been a consistent and proactive voice for manufacturing in the MEP system. At key moments, he has stepped forward, not just with words, but with meaningful strategic approach. He's been a true partner in this work, showing up with commitment and purpose. Manufacturing is more than just machines and products. It's about people, it's about our families, it's about our futures, it's about our communities. And thanks to leaders like Congressman Riley, we're just not surviving. We're trying to build something strong and sustainable. So thank you to Congressman Riley and the folks that are here tonight for standing with us. And thank you to all for believing in the power of American manufacturing.
Thank you so much, Carol. And last and certainly not least, an alma mater of this institution that are alumni. This is his alma mater. He's an alumni of this institution that we're at today. I'd like to welcome Will Kleffner, who is the executive director of the Cooperstown Food Pantry.
Good evening. In addition to being the executive director of the Cooperstown Food Pantry, I am also a member of the Hunger Coalition of Otsego County, the Alliance for Hunger Free New York, and the Regional Food Bank's Advocacy Committee. In my many conversations with colleagues from all over the state, one common theme always seems to stand out. We are all absolutely exhausted. Many of us are experiencing exponential increases in need, ranging from 45 to 50% to as much as 200% from 2023 into 2024. Currently, the state minimum SNAP allotment is just a paltry $23 a month. And I recently encountered a family of 4 who, after waiting 30 days for the application to process, received just $37 a month. This is not enough to feed a family of 4 for a day, let alone for a month. Over the course of the last 3.5 years, the Cooperstown Food Pantry has experienced a nearly 80% increase in need, serving more seniors and multi-generational households in the last year than we've ever seen before. Food banks and food pantries often relied on USDA products, accessing necessities like fresh produce, meat, and dried beans at little to no cost. In June of 2024, the Regional Food Bank had 31 USDA products available in their warehouse, and partners could order up to 16 cases of product at a given time when available. Since June of 2024, those 31 choices have now dwindled down to just 7. And those 7 choices include 3 meat options, 1 produce option, 1 grain, apple juice, and applesauce. The once abundant availability of these 31 products allowed for organizations like us to purchase products such as adult and baby diapers, feminine hygiene products, and laundry detergent. Now, these are generally not covered by any form of federal assistance. Food banks and food pantries across the state are constantly battling insufficient resources, trying to do more with less, and increase competition for local, state, and federal funds. Federal cuts to USDA and the Local Procurement Act have already caused major interruption to our local food supply chain, forcing organizations who are already stretched incredibly thin to pivot and find new resources. As of March 2025, under the most recent USDA cuts, the Regional Food Bank had 1 million pounds of already contracted food deliveries canceled. To put that into better perspective, that is equivalent to about 35 tractor trailers carrying 24 to 28,000 pounds of food. No food drive can fill a gap this substantial. We must ask ourselves about the impacts of these cuts. Food banks and food pantries will have to find alternative sources for food, likely paying full retail value or more, potentially requiring feeding programs to restructure funding to prioritize sourcing much-needed products. At the Cooperstown Food Pantry, this could mean losing our farmers market voucher program in partnership with Otsego 2000, providing our neighbors in need with $20 worth of free vouchers for fresh fruits and vegetables each and every month. This program has not only proven to increase our neighbors' access to fresh fruits and vegetables, but contributes to the local economy. In 2024, there was a 76% increase from $13,000 in 2023 to nearly $23,000 in local food items provided to our neighbors in need. So far in 2025, $11,000 in local food was provided through the market's food access initiatives. Along with providing local food to people in need, these programs bring more business to local farmers and the local economy. It's estimated that every $1 in SNAP generates about $1.80 in economic impact, meaning in 2024, SNAP at our farmers market generated more than $40,000 in local economic activity. Congressman Riley has made it abundantly clear that he is deeply opposed to any cuts to safety net programs like SNAP and Medicaid, and recognizes and understands the challenges many of us face in providing support to our neighbors in rural communities. The proposed Big Beautiful Bill has the potential to increase need by 100% in Otsego County, all while closing about half of our smaller local pantries. Under this bill, SNAP cost shifts would require New York State to find $1.8 billion to fund this program alone, very likely eliminating focus on programs like the Universal Free School Meals Program that provides breakfast and lunch to nearly 3 million students in New York State. Any cuts to Medicaid would further strain local hospitals and would very likely leave the nearly 13,000 people currently enrolled in Medicaid in Otsego County without any form of health coverage. At the Cooperstown Food Pantry, we firmly believe that no one should ever have to make the choice between paying for the cost of treatment and paying for the cost of food. Participants in food as medicine programs would simply no longer have to make that impossible choice, as they simply couldn't afford either. What is truly upsetting is that we have seen the positive impacts that investments into our safety net programs have on those living in poverty. In 2021, primarily due to the temporary expansions of the child tax credit under the American Rescue Plan, we saw childhood poverty levels reach a historic low of 5.2%. When those expansions expired in 2022, this resulted in growth of childhood poverty rates to nearly 19% in New York State. And under the SNAP emergency allotments, where minimum started at $95 a month, we saw historic lows in demand at the Cooperstown Food Pantry. But following the elimination of these emergency allotments in 2023, with an average cut of $90 per month per household, pantries and food banks have once again begun to see increases in demand as high as 200%. Instead of building on the success of these initiatives and these investments, we are headed in the opposite direction, making cuts to current programs and stymieing future programs that will affect as much as 20% of the population of Otsego County who rely on them for survival. While we may be tired, we simply cannot give up. We cannot lose hope. We must continue to fight alongside Congressman Riley to oppose these cruel draconian cuts, not only to protect the most vulnerable members of our Otsego County communities, but for all New Yorkers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Will. Thank you again to Gary, Mayor Drenick, Carol, and Will for sharing their stories. And I hope I can speak for all of you, helping me learn even a little bit more about what's going on than I had known before. So on to the good part. Let's talk about this town hall, right? You all submitted questions through your online RSVP or in the bingo drum in the lobby. We have printed out all of the online questions, added them to the bingo drum, and mixed them all together and brought them on stage here. It doesn't look like a lot because it's thin slips of paper, but there actually are many in there. So here's how it's gonna work. When our moderator comes out, she's gonna pull questions from the bingo drum and read the first name and the town, city, village, hamlet that you associated where you come from. When she reads your name, please raise your hand. I will come find you at the mic. If she calls your name and says that you're on deck, your next step, please. When she reads your name and you're going to stand. When she reads your name and you're on deck, you're going to raise your hand. And another member of our team is going to find you. So we can quickly go from one to one. So it's not a whole game of Where's Waldo. we'll keep going through that as she announces. I'll also be handed your question, so you'll be able to read it from the slip in case your name gets called and you're like, what did I write a question about? I had 2 questions. We'll bring it to you. Don't worry. Don't sit there trying to remember right now. After you read your question, I will move on to the next person. We want to make sure to get to as many as possible, so we won't have time for follow-ups here. But if anything comes up, if your question isn't read tonight, again, please on your way out, find a member of our team. We can't go into full, questions and answers tonight, but we can get your contact information and follow up with you in the coming days about your question. So, one last thing. You guys seem like an incredible crowd. You've been so nice and generous to all of us tonight. And we know that tonight you all came to ask questions and hear from the congressman, and we all want that. And we want that to work. So we're going to ask you, please respect your fellow New York 19 community members. While they read their questions and while the congressman is giving answers, please make sure everyone can hear. You were all sent an email with your RSVP beforehand, and if you registered today, I'll tell you what that said. As a quick reminder, disruptive behavior, including yelling, interrupting, harassing, or refusal to follow staff instructions will not be tolerated. Personal attacks towards other attendees, staff, or law enforcement and security personnel will also clearly not be tolerated, nor will threats, hate speech, or discriminatory language of any kind. Do you think we can do that? Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I knew I could trust you. So with that, I'm ready to introduce our moderator who's going to help us with the conversation tonight. It's time for me to pass off the mic. I read wrong. To our incredible moderator, Paula Younger. Paula is the Executive Director for Government, Community, and Constituent Relations in the President's Office of Ithaca College, and we are so lucky to have her joining us tonight in her personal capacity. Welcome, Paula.
She was a little bit taller than I am. What do you think? So good evening, everyone, and thank you, Georgina, for the kind introduction. I am honored to be here tonight as your moderator for this important and timely town hall with New York State District 19 Representative Josh Riley. I want to begin, though, by thanking all of you for taking the time to participate in this important conversation. You know, civic engagement is the cornerstone of a healthy democracy, and your presence here tonight reflects a shared commitment to that ideal. Thank you. I'd like to take a moment to clarify my role this evening. I am here as a neutral facilitator to ensure that the event runs smoothly, that your voices are heard, and that we might maintain a respectful atmosphere. Ultimately, my goal is to support community engagement and constructive dialogue. As Georgina mentioned, there were some ground rules for tonight, and of course, I'm not going to repeat them. What I'll ask is that you just keep them front of mind as we proceed this evening. Please take care of yourself, and please take care of each other. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor to introduce a 5th-generation upstate New Yorker, West Endicott native, Pato and Mateo's dad, and our representative for New York's 19th District. Please join me in welcoming Congressman Josh Riley.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. How's everybody doing? Good. Oh, my leash is almost long enough. All right, we got it. Terrific. I am so grateful to all of you for coming out tonight. Just want to say a couple quick thank yous. First of all, I want to thank my amazing team who's here. They're doing a great job. They're out in the community doing a ton of work. I know you got to meet a bunch of them. Can we give a round of applause to my team? And I just want to take a second to thank all of the law enforcement personnel who are here. Thank you. This is, tonight, as I understand it, this is the first town hall that any member of Congress has done since the horrific events in Minnesota on Saturday. And we had to have some pretty serious conversations over the last couple of days with family and with team, with the community about whether we should go forward tonight in light of those events. And we decided, and you all are here because we are not going to be scared and we are not going to be intimidated. And we are going to be here and we are going to do democracy. And we wouldn't be able to do it without law enforcement. Now, I have to tell you something. My team spent like 5 minutes telling me how to turn on this clicker. Are we doing it? Hey guys, can you tell me again how to do the clicker? No, for real though. This is going exactly how we planned it. Oh, there we go. We got it. All right, cool. I didn't realize it was behind me. All right, so this is what we're going to do. I want to take just, if you'll indulge me, give me like 10 minutes. I just want to give you some highlights from my first 5 months in office. It's been 5 months. Does it feel like 5 years? Want to give you a couple highlights, and then we're going to open it up. We're going to take questions for as long as I can. So many of you know me already, and you know I can't go out and do an event without telling a story about my kids. So I want to tell you about my first day at work. January 3rd, got sworn in. I was able to take my whole family to Washington with me to get sworn in. And one of the coolest things that I've ever experienced in my life was being able to take my 2 boys down to the House floor for my first vote. And Mateo's going to turn 2 next week. Patricio's going to turn 5 in August. And I took him down to the floor to vote. And it was the first time I'd ever voted on anything. And you get this little card, and you take it and you put it in that little box, and then there's 3 buttons there. It's yes, no, and maybe. No, it's not maybe. It's present. It's present. And so we go down and we put the card in the box, and Mateo, he's our rambunctious one, comes over and just starts smashing the hell out of all the buttons and everything. And I'm just like so, thinking how great this is. And then took my card and walked off the floor. And I realized I had no idea how I voted because I just left it to Mateo. And so my chief of staff, I got off the floor and my chief of staff said, "Josh, are you sure you voted the right way?" I had no idea. So we went back in. We had to check Mateo's work. He got it right. He had the right vote. But yeah, thank you, Mateo. And as we were on the floor, then going back in to check, Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, came out onto the floor. And of all the people on the House and in Congress at the time, Mateo V-lines over to Mike Johnson and is like looking at him, adoringly, and they hit it off. And then you see the swearing in photo that we had. And one of the things you kind of notice, I don't know if you can tell on this one, but Mateo's looking adoringly at Mike Johnson. And Pato, of course, is doing the hip and the thing. And a reporter asked me the next day, they're like, "Josh, Mateo ran up to the speaker on the floor, and then like you had this swearing in photo and the whole thing. And like, what's the deal?" And you all know this about me. I'm a Democrat, but I come from a Republican family. And guys, I think political affiliation skips a generation. And Mateo is going to be. So let's see what else we got here. I want to go over just some of the things, some of the highlights, some of the things I'm really proud of having worked on over my first 5 months in office. And look, when you guys elected me to Congress, I promised you're not going to agree with me on everything, but I promise you this. I'm always willing to work with anyone from any party who's willing to do right by upstate New York. And I'm going to fight against anyone who's trying to hurt us. And that's exactly what I've been doing. Elon Musk came in and called Social Security a Ponzi scheme. Not on my watch. And so I introduced legislation to keep the Social Security offices open, keep the phone lines open, keep your checks coming, and get Elon Musk the hell out of our sensitive payment systems. And I'll work with anyone to do it. I have bipartisan legislation to protect Social Security. We've seen, does this thing go backwards too? Guys, I'm not good at this clicker, man. You guys put way too much faith in me. All right. we've seen this administration came in and tried to dismantle the Department of Education. I'm a proud product of our public schools. I went from growing up in an EJ house to being here representing all of you because of the public school education that I got. And this administration came in and they said they were going to dismantle the whole thing. In this community and down in Sullivan County in particular, we've seen efforts to try to close Job Corps. We are not going to allow any of that to happen. And it's not just saying we're not going to do it. We got to have action behind it. I've joined litigation to keep the Department of Education open, to keep Job Corps open, and we have gotten court orders fighting back against the administration to keep both of those things open. I think you all heard from some of my friends earlier about the work we're doing to protect good manufacturing jobs in upstate New York. The President of the United States came to a joint session of Congress and said he wanted to kill the CHIPS and Science Act. No way. No way. That is the future of good jobs, saving the planet, and rebuilding the middle class in this country. So I used my seat on the Science, Space, and Technology Committee to protect it. I'm so bad at the clicker, guys. I'm good at some stuff. This one is not it. Okay. Yeah. Yay. All right. No. Okay. I know what the next one says, and we'll find it as I'm going through here. I said I would work with anyone who's going to help us and fight against anybody who's trying to hurt us. And one of the entities that's trying to hurt us, it's not just the administration, it is the corporate monopolies that run the utility companies around here. I am so goddamn sick of NYSEG and Central Hudson and National Grid raising rates on the people I represent while their shareholders are running around Wall Street bragging about record profits. So I've launched an investigation. I think there was on the slide earlier, if you're having issues with the utility company, let us know. One of the bills that I'm most proud of for my first 5 months, the first bill that I wrote and introduced would lower egg prices. And a lot of people say, Josh, you know, there's a lot going on in the world. Sometimes it feels like democracy's on the brink and you're focused on egg prices. I'm focused on egg prices because democracy is at stake. We have to show that democracy can work for working people and make a difference at their kitchen table. And the thing I'm proud of with that bill is that as a freshman in the minority, a few months into my first term in Congress, I was able to bring together a coalition that includes everybody from folks like Sarah McBride in the Progressive Caucus to Andy Harris, who's the head of the Freedom Caucus, the most conservative caucus in Congress, brought all of those people together in a coalition to do some common sense reform to bring down your grocery bills. That's the kind of work you all sent me to do. And then the last one on, thank you. Last one I was going to share with you, but I think somebody already talked earlier about the work we're doing with our food banks. I've visited over a dozen food banks and food pantries over the last couple of months. And as I've been doing that, I've noticed over time that the shelves are becoming more and more bare. And there's less and less fresh produce available for folks. And so I've pulled together a coalition of Democrats and Republicans to work on legislation to restore funding so that we can buy local food from local farmers for local kids going to the local food banks, because that is the smartest thing we can do. And then the last slide here, and then we're going to have a conversation. The single most important job that I have, aside from being a dad, is making sure that we have the best constituent services operation possible. And we have spent the first 5 months of our time really, really focused on that. And I'm still proud that we've hired a team of caseworkers. We've already opened hundreds of cases. Just last night, late last night, we were working on making sure folks who are in Israel right now can get home and get connected with the resources they need. We've had folks with issues with everything from the IRS to every other agency that we've been able to help out. And the thing that I'm most proud of with this is our mobile office hours program. This district is 178 towns, it's 11 counties, it's 5 media markets, it's a 4-hour drive from one end to the other, and I do my best to be everywhere at once. But one of the ways we do that is by having our team go out into the community, go out into corners of the community, to towns and to places that have been overlooked and left behind for a long time. So you can just come down the street and see us at the local library. And so if you have any issues with the federal government, I do not care what your political party is. I do not care who you voted for. What I care is that you know that my door is open. We have people who want nothing more than to help and come see us. Okay? All right, that's what I have. All right, that's the end of the day. Good night, everyone. No, I'm kidding. So let's take some questions.
So I'd like to remind us once again about the format for this part of the town hall, the Q&A part. So I will read two questions. I will read two names, excuse me. So there will be name number one, first name, first initial of your last name, and your city. And I'll ask you to please stand so that our staff, and Georgina's going to be one there, will be able to recognize you and bring you the mic. I will also read at the same time a second name, first initial of the last name, and your city. You are that second person on deck, right? I would ask that you just raise your hand so our staff members can see you and know that you will be the next person to read your question. All right? So
It's like winning the lottery, Paula.
the winner is. So the first question, Linda Q from Vestal. Would you raise your hand, please?
I know a Linda Q from Vestal. Hi, Linda. Sorry I missed your call on Saturday.
Second person on
Making sure this
person on
works.
deck, Tracy H from Gilbertsville. Will you raise your hand, please? Thank you.
Okay. I stand so you can see me.
I see you. I see you, Linda.
I would like to know if you support the actions that ICE is taking against immigrants in the country right now.
So can everybody hear the question? Yeah, everybody can hear it. I have very, very serious concerns with what we are seeing with immigration enforcement across the country right now. And look, on an issue like this that can be really controversial and divisive in a place like Washington, D.C., I think it's important that when we're home in upstate New York, we take a step back and appreciate some shared values and I think some shared principles on this. So let me just address the immigration issue generally. Our immigration system in this country is so broken and such a mess. And that is because for the last 40 years, a whole bunch of politicians in Washington have decided that they'd rather play games with it and rather use it as something to divide people up and run on for their own political purposes than actually coming together, working together, and fixing it. In upstate New York, when I talk to folks, just about everybody I've talked to agrees that what we should do as our approach to immigration is this. If you're here unlawfully and you're committing crimes and harming people in the community, then you should be removed after you have due process, because I don't care who you are or what you are accused of, you are entitled to due process in this country, and that is what makes America great. If you are here, you're working hard, you're playing by the rules, you're paying your taxes, you're contributing to the economy, to the community, you're doing what generations and centuries of immigrants have done in this country, then you should be able to pursue the American dream and you should have an opportunity to earn legal status. That is so obvious in upstate New York, and for some reason, the politicians in Washington It's not for some reason, we know, because they play politics with it. They won't do common sense, bipartisan, comprehensive immigration reform. And what we're seeing right now, and what we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years, is the consequence of the politicians' failure to get serious and fix the problem. Turning on the TV right now and seeing ICE rip kids away from families, that's not who we are. Seeing ICE show up in hotels and on dairy farms and taking away people who have been working their tails off for 20 years, that's not right. So we have to really roll up our sleeves and get serious about this problem. Can I give you just one example of what I don't want to just say words. I want to tell you the actions that I'm taking. And can I give you one example of this? So our district, we've got about 400 dairy farms. I spend a whole lot of time on dairy farms. Side note, I came home from one of them a week or two ago, and my wife got really mad at me when I was washing my boots off in the bathtub. She's like, Josh, we bathe our kids in there. So I spent a lot of time on dairy farms. And did you know this? For our visa system right now for farm workers, if you're here picking apples or harvesting crops, you can get a visa seasonally if you're here for 3 months or 4 months. But guess what? There's no visa year round. And guess what? The cows have to be milked year round, all day, every day, all year. I haven't met a cow yet that you milk only in the summer. How stupid is that? How stupid is our immigration system that we're expecting people to milk the cows seasonally? So what I've done, I know. You know what's funny? Like, y'all laugh at that because it's so obviously stupid. I go down to Washington and explain this to people, and I'm like, where does the milk come from? So look, I'm working with, this shouldn't be an issue that's about Democrats and Republicans. This should be an issue about, do you want to fight for dairy farmers? And you know who wants to fight for dairy farmers are a bunch of really conservative Republicans in Wisconsin, because they make a whole lot of milk. And so I've been working with my friends from Wisconsin on dairy visa reform legislation so that we can get these folks the year-long visas that they need and their dairy farmers need. That's common sense. That's the way we approach things in upstate New York. And we're going to take that kind of action down with us to Washington.
Okay. Hi.
Hi. Remind me your name and what town you're from.
Yes, I'm Tracy H. I'm from Gilbertsville.
Beautiful.
And my question is, you ran and you obviously in your cool clicky slideshow, like you are willing to work with anybody and work on bipartisan stuff, which is great. I worry because Democrats are in the minority. And I worry that maybe there's not as many people on the other side of the aisle willing to have that bipartisan spirit. And I'm wondering if you're having any luck or what have you with getting congressmen from red districts who have districts that look like New York 19, and their constituents are going to be equally hammered by this bill if it passes. And maybe do we have a shot of turning enough people to defeat this bill?
Yeah, it's a great question. But the bill you're referring to that's a great question. Thank you. You're referring to the reconciliation bill, what they're calling the big beautiful bill. It's actually really big and really ugly. That's the bill you're talking about. So let me address two things there. One, bipartisanship, and let me give you an update on what's happening with that bill. In terms of bipartisan, look, the district I represent, it's a third Democrats, a third Republicans, a third independents. I've learned very quickly, no matter what I do, there's going to be some people who don't agree with me. And that is okay. That is okay. I actually love it because when a tough decision comes to me, I get to look at all different angles of it. I get to hear all the arguments. Everybody knows I didn't go to Washington to just follow the talking points for any political party. I went to do what's right for upstate New York. And for me to do that, I've got to hear a wide range of perspectives. I think that positions me uniquely to be able to work across the aisle and to build relationships. Ton of the work that I've done already is bipartisan. I think that's the right way to work in Washington. I also think it's the only way we're going to get stuff done and make people's lives better. I told you about the bill I have to lower egg prices. I'll tell you about another one that I just introduced last week. I'm on the agriculture committee, and I sit about 2 or 3 seats down from a young Republican from Iowa named Zach Nunn. And I knew I liked Zach because during one of our first committee hearings, he told a really cringy dad joke during the hearing. And I said, this is my guy, the dad joke guy, the guy with the bad dad jokes. And we got together, built a rapport talking about our kids. I think he has 6 of them. I don't know how he does that. And just last week, we introduced a bill together to stop foreign entities like China or Russia from importing terrorism chemicals into the United States. Basic common sense, not partisan, but we're able to do it because we both come from really rural districts. So on bipartisanship, I really have spent a lot of time and taken a lot of pride in getting to know folks as people and not as a political label. And it's positioned me to do a lot of really good bipartisan work. I want to address the bill, the reconciliation bill, because this has been the big thing that's been in the news, the big thing that we've been working on. Is everybody here familiar with this bill that's got a lot of news? I see a lot of notes. Yeah, yeah. So this bill, essentially what it would do is it would cut about 700 or 800 billion dollars out of the public health system, mostly through Medicaid cuts. That would be devastating in upstate New York. It would be devastating. 30% of the folks I represent, 40% of the kids, 50% of the babies, and 70% of the seniors in nursing homes that I represent are on Medicaid. And this bill would rip the rug right out from underneath them. We've seen what's happened with food banks and the funding cuts they want for nutrition assistance. It would cut all of that. And remember, when we're talking about taking 700 or 800 billion dollars out of the public health system, we're not just talking about the damage that would cause to the most vulnerable among us, folks who are on Medicaid. That's also going to jack up your premiums. Anybody on private insurance, your premiums are going to go through the roof. And you know what else is going to happen? We're a rural territory up here. This is the 4th most rural district in the country, as I understand it, based on the percentage of people who live in rural communities. Our rural hospitals, hanging them by a thread, would go out of business, right? Now, why would we do that? Why would a bunch of politicians in Washington rip healthcare away from folks who are struggling, rip nutrition assistance away from folks who are struggling, close down Head Start, close down Job Corps, dismantle the Department of Education? Why would we, as a people, inflict all of that hardship on folks who are already struggling to get by? You know why they're doing it? They want to give $3.4 trillion in tax cuts to Wall Street. And why do they want to do that? Because you know who has the lobbyists in Washington, D.C. and the super PACs in Washington, D.C.? It's not the folks on Medicaid, and it's not the folks going to the food banks. It's the folks who are exploiting Citizens United. It's the folks who are exploiting our broken campaign finance system. And the whole thing is so corrupt. And that's where we are. So I have voted against this bill now as it came to us as a House budget blueprint. It came back to us as a Senate budget blueprint. It came to me in the Agriculture Committee. I voted against it at 3 o'clock in the morning during a 24-hour debate. I went to the House floor and I said, hey guys, if you want to give tax cuts to folks, number one, let's give tax cuts to the middle class for once in this country. And if you want to pay for it, you're not going to pay for it on the backs of the kids that I represent in upstate New York. Let's negotiate prescription drug costs, save billions of dollars, and put that money in the pockets of the middle class. So let's stay in close touch as that bill continues to work through the process. I'll continue to provide you all updates. I hope you're all signed up for my newsletter, which is where I try to get information out about it. And I really appreciate that question. Thank you.
All right, now on to our next 2 questions. The first from Daniel B. from Margaretville. Would you stand? Thank you. And
Daniel, I
then
love the Cauliflower Festival.
And then next on deck will be Ed P. from Oneonta. Are you here?
Yeah.
All right. If you would just raise your hand, sir, and we'll make sure that they come over to you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much for this forum to ask questions. So during your campaign, you made a central issue out of manufacturing, protecting manufacturing, reshoring manufacturing. I think we all know, those of us in Delaware County certainly know, manufacturing is being devastated here. And unfortunately, it's not getting any better. In fact, just this past weekend, I was in Stanford, 20 miles down the road here, where Catskill Craftsman, a factory that's been here since the 1940s, closed. That's 80 jobs we've lost. You know, this is what's happening as a result of these free trade deals with China, Mexico, and these other countries. Fortunately, there's a little bit of hope in that our two most recent presidents, both President Biden and President Trump, have been willing to use tariffs, which are frankly long overdue if we're to maintain any kind of manufacturing, to try and protect manufacturing. So that's good. The bad side of it, besides it being sometime radically implemented, is these are all temporary, they're not in law, and they can all go away. And hence, the protection that they offer to our manufacturers is very limited. So what I would like to know, will you, as our representative and the representative of those 80 people who don't have a job and of another factory that's closed in Delaware County, be willing to introduce legislation to codify these tariffs, at least like, for example, Trump now has the 10% baseline tariff, implement that before we have absolutely no manufacturing left in upstate New York at all?
Thank you. Thank you for this question. So this is something that I think you all know this about me by now. I don't really see myself as a politician. I got into politics for a number of reasons, and this was one of the biggest reasons I got into politics, because I've seen across upstate New York what has happened when bad trade deals shipped jobs overseas. It was devastating in our community. The opioid epidemic came in, child poverty rate skyrocketed. We lost tens of thousands of really good manufacturing jobs. And that was devastating across upstate New York. It was really good for Wall Street. And it was both Democrats and Republicans that got us into a whole bunch of terrible trade deals. Getting into NAFTA was one of the stupidest things we've done in this country. Letting China into the WTO, we never should have done that. And now we should probably kick them out. And so the question is, we have hemorrhaged really good blue collar manufacturing jobs for a generation. These are good jobs that can earn you a place in the middle class, even if you don't have a college degree. The only requirement is that you have a strong work ethic. You show up, whether that's the third shift or the first, you do your job, and you come in on the weekends if you have to, and you just hustle really hard, and you got a shot at the middle class. I grew up in Endicott, which is a factory town. We made boots and shoes for generations, and then IBM was founded there. I grew up in an EJ house that was literally built by the shoe factory in town. In my office in Washington, D.C., it's been a hectic 5 months, so we haven't fully decorated it, but the one thing that I have there prominently displayed are 2 pairs of boots that we manufactured at Endicott Johnson. One was worn during World War I, and one was a pair of them was worn during World War II. It's who we are in upstate New York. This idea made in America, I think a lot of politicians use that as a slogan, but for us, that's our identity. That's our sweat and our blood. So to your question, how do we fix all the damage that the politicians and the special interests have done to us for the last generation? Folks in the economic elites and the political establishment who have sold us out, looked down on us for a long time. I think it's 2 things, and I think you mentioned both of them. Number one, we need an industrial policy that actually invests in manufacturing, because this stuff is capital intensive. It doesn't just happen on its own. And one of the main reasons that I asked to be on the Science and Technology Committee is because we have jurisdiction over the CHIPS and Science Act, and we have jurisdiction over the National Science Foundation. Those are 2 of the most critical investments in bringing good manufacturing jobs back home. You look at what's happened in China, and they have invested billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars in building their industrial capacity. And in the United States, politicians have been twiddling their thumbs and selling us out for 40 years. And it's got to stop, and we've got to be committed to those investments. And so when the President of the United States came to a joint session of Congress and said he wanted to kill the CHIPS and Science Act, I stood up and fought against that, because it's bad policy, and that's a punch in the gut to folks across upstate New York who are hoping to get those good jobs building semiconductors. The second part of it, which you identified, is the issue of tariffs. And look, here's the thing. The president is asking the right question in terms of how do we fix these terrible trade deals that we've gotten into. I think his answer is partially right in the sense that we should have tariffs in place that put American workers on a level playing field with other countries. If we are competing on a level playing field, nobody in the world beats American workers and nobody in the world beats American innovation. The problem is we've been competing against places like China using sweatshop labor, not following any environmental regulations. And so tariffs that are done strategically and in a targeted way, focused on critical industries, have a place. The concern that I have with what the president's done is, number one, it's quite erratic. And the other thing is that a lot of the tariffs he's put in place have not been targeted where they need to be, and they've been hurting our farmers. I've talked to so many farmers who are terrified about increasing prices for potash and increasing prices for equipment, things that we're not making in the United States. We should at some point if we give a runway, but the last thing we should be doing is raising input costs even more for farmers who are already hanging on by a thread. So we've got to get smart and targeted on this, and it should be a combination of investments like CHIPS and Science and National Science Foundation and tariffs that put American workers on a level playing field. Appreciate the question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Remind me your name and your town.
Ed from Oneonta.
Okay, great.
And my question actually overlaps a great deal of what was just spoken of. And because I'm particularly concerned about the gutting of our research facilities with our universities, both in terms of what's being done to cutting the funding for scientific research, as well as what's being done in the removal of the international students who are so much a part of that and contribute so much to our own scientific development and what we can do about this.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a lot of talk these days in Washington about waste and efficiency. You know what's some of the most valuable dollars and the most efficient dollars that we invest in as a country? It's in research and development and science. A dollar invested in science. I mean, this was a great question before about our competitiveness with China. We're falling behind, folks, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But one of them is we have stopped investing in science and STEM education. I was with my, I have an upstate manufacturing advisory board. And one of the things we were talking about a couple of weeks ago when I convened that group was getting kids, especially in our rural schools, into STEM education. I mean, we're like so far behind on the pipeline for all of this. I have the huge honor to represent Cornell, Ithaca College, SUNY Oneonta, Hartwick, Binghamton University. Some of the places that are crown jewels across the country in terms of scientific research. And I asked to be on the Science and Technology Committee for exactly this reason. It puts me in a frontline place where I can defend investments in the National Science Foundation and defend investments for the CHIPS and Science Act. And so one of the things I've done on the committee is try to build bipartisan support for these investments. And we're going to go through an appropriations process and a budget process later in the year. And you can count on me to be on the front lines in fighting to protect that, because I appreciate how valuable it is. The last thing I'll say on this is, look, this also isn't new for us in upstate New York. You know, I know a lot of people probably around the country don't think of us this way, but upstate New York has, for generations, been on the forefront of innovation. That's what we do around here. I mean, back in the 30s, when the Social Security Administration was getting up and running, there were no computers back then. How are you going to get something as big and complicated as the Social Security Administration together when you don't have any computers? We figured it out. Here in this congressional district, we figured it out. We made the punch cards at the computing, tabulating, and recording company. And now today, you all get your Social Security checks because of the work we did here. I mentioned the boots that I have in my office, and my team is so sick of hearing about the boots. But the boots, the boots that my great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents made, I mean, those were on the feet of soldiers who were trampling fascism and literally saving the world. Like, we did that. one of the coolest things I've gotten to do over the last couple of months, I visited GE Aerospace in Chenango County, and man, the work they are doing, every plane you have been on has parts that they're making in Norwich. Rockets that we're working on, we're doing that. We're literally in upstate New York. We are the folks that are sending people into space. And so this is something that, number one, I hope you can tell, is a huge point of pride for me. And number two, I asked for my committee assignments based on it. I will say, when I asked to be on the Science and Technology Committee, I got elected, and you have to figure out what your committees are. I asked to be on Science and Technology, and a lot of people said, Josh, why in the world would you get on Science and Technology? Nobody's heard of it. It's never on TV. It's not the place where you can go and get into the big food fights and have all the drama. And I said, that's kind of the point. I want to go roll up my sleeves and get work done, and work that's going to be really meaningful for our community. And so I promise you, I'm working on it. Thank you.
We're now on to our third set of questions. The first one is from Lisa T., New Kingston. Would you please stand? Thank you. And then next on deck, Aiden Murphy from Oneonta. Would you wave your hand? Aiden's in the back. Thank you, Aiden.
Okay. You sort of addressed some of this, but out in Delaware County, we're really concerned about the big, beautiful budget and Medicaid cuts and how it'll affect Delaware County hospitals. Because a lot of us worry that when they, close, because they're, as you said, they're holding on by a thread. People would have to travel quite a distance just for basic maintenance care, let alone emergencies. And I'm wondering why the big beautiful bill passes with these cuts. Like, isn't this a concern in other districts as well? Why aren't other congressmen concerned about this on the other side?
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. So I think we talked about this a bit, but let me give you my hypothesis for why that's happening, and then just make one other point. I think Washington, D.C. is corrupt as hell. And people from both parties don't like me coming around saying we've got to get rid of Citizens United and get the dark and dirty money out of our politics. We got to ban the corporate PACs. We need term limits for these people. No more trading stocks when you're in office, and the gerrymandering. Make our democracy work for people. And this is an example of it, because you know who benefits from $3.4 trillion in tax cuts? Are the wealthiest folks and the biggest corporations in this country. There's a chart that you can find that shows how the benefits and cuts in this bill are distributed. And it's literally a chart for the top 10% going up, for the middle doing nothing, and for the bottom going down. And then you can draw a line from who's benefiting from what to who has how many lobbyists and how many super PACs. That's why I don't take any corporate PAC money. I don't meet with anybody in my office who's not from upstate New York or representing somebody from upstate New York. So I think that's part of it. But here's the good news. There are folks, all of you came out tonight. You didn't have to do this. And we are in a pretty scary, challenging time. And I'd love you for coming out. And I know there are folks in other congressional districts who are coming out and making their voices heard too. And at some point, these people have to realize that their political careers are not worth closing down rural hospitals. And in fact, if they want to save their political careers, they got to start doing right by people for once, instead of just doing what's right by the corporate PACs. So I just want to, we talked about the bill. If I could just take 1 second and say this. We talked about a lot of the work I feel like I've been doing in Washington over the last 5 months is playing defense and fighting back against things that would hurt upstate New York. I have a vision for, and this is important. I don't think it's enough to just say what we're against. I think it's really important, and I owe it to you to tell you what we're for and what my vision is. And so when it comes to healthcare, particularly in our rural communities, I think we should I think we should reimagine our schools as part of the healthcare delivery system. I want to invest in mental health counselors in the schools. We ought to have nurses in our schools, basic dental care, because exactly what you said, the number of parents I've talked to who have to take their kids out of school, drive 2 hours for an appointment that they just waited 3 months for, drive 2 hours back. Mom and dad just lost a day's wages. The kid just lost a day of school. And there's no reason we shouldn't have that available to them right down the street. We have a massive shortage of providers and nurses in our rural communities. My vision is that we are investing and giving that the value that it actually has. In my vision for what healthcare looks like, being a doctor or a nurse in rural America is the best job you can possibly get because you're paid well, you got a good quality of life, and we have to make those kinds of investments. And at the end of the day, my view on all of this, we're talking about cutting billions of dollars of healthcare from people. Healthcare should be a civil right in this country, not something that's driving families into bankruptcy and not something that's driving corporate profits.
So Congressman, we're going to move on to two new questions because we have found that the next person in the audience felt that their question had already been answered
Oh,
in
good.
reference to Job Corps, so they'd
Cool.
like to
Was it a good answer?
give someone else an opportunity.
It must have been a good answer because they probably would have given me a second shot at it if it wasn't. So
So the next question is from Mary W. from the city of Oneonta. Mary, if you're here in the audience, would you please stand? And then the next one on deck is Logan O. from Oneonta. Logan, are you here? All right, so Logan is over there. So Logan, thank you for raising your hand.
Good evening.
hi, it's Mary, right? From Oneonta?
Yeah,
Beautiful.
that's it, from Oneonta. Sorry, I got a frog in my throat. We put a lot of faith in our representatives and our congresspeople to fight for us. And I guess my question is, I would like to know from your perspective, what we as members of the general public can do to offset the damage of this administration.
Thank you. What a great question. Boy, I appreciate that question so much because, look, I'm the one sitting on the stage, but we are all in this thing together, right? And so I appreciate that perspective from the question. So let me just tell you, the first 60 business days that I was in office, my office received 70,000 telephone calls. That means, if you do the math there, that means the phone is ringing about 3 times every minute, all day, every day. And people were not calling to just check in and say, hey, everything's fine. Hey, Josh, it's me again. Just wanted to let you know it's another great day. It was not those calls. It was people calling because you're scared and angry, frustrated. And I just need you to know I hear you and I'm with you. And how can you not be? I mean, you see something like the administration auctioning off our environmental policy for $6 billion to the oil industry. And I have 2 kids who I want nothing else than to have a planet to inherit. I'm terrified about that. Frustrated. I'm probably as frustrated as anybody with the Democratic Party right now. And that's coming from me as a Democrat. And so the question I get the most is some variation of what you just asked me, which is, what can we do about it? How do you take the anger? How do you take the fear? How do you take the frustration and turn it into action? And I can tell you what my perspective is and my approach to this job for our community. I'm not going to speak for any political party nationally or even for the country, but for upstate New York, this is the way I think about it. I'm going to tell you how I think about my job, and then I'm going to tell you what would be helpful as part of yours. I need to pick my battles, and I've got to fight them with everything I've got. If I fought against every single thing out of Washington that I disagree with, I would be fighting against nothing because it would dilute my effort to the point of nothing. So how do I pick my battles? I pick them based on my conversations with all of you. I spend all of my time out in the community talking to folks, hearing your challenges, hearing your concerns, your hopes, your dreams, and I take all that with me to Washington. I'll give you one example that I'm really proud of. And some of you may have seen this in the news over the last couple of weeks. There's a 6th generation dairy farmer in northern Broome County in the town of Lisle. And I'm pretty sure he voted for the president 3 times. I know he voted against me twice. And after I got sworn in, and then after the president got sworn in, he reached out to my office as a constituent because he'd had a contract with the federal government that allowed him to plant cover crops, which help protect the soil. And he went into his life savings and he went out and invested a whole bunch because he had this contract with the government to do it. And the Trump administration came in and they canceled all the contracts. Just cancel them. So he called me. He was out like $190,000 of investments. This is a dairy farm that's barely hanging on by a thread. And he called my office and asked for help. And I'm so glad he did because we made it our mission to get that funding back for him. Number one, because that's not how we treat people in upstate New York. In upstate New York, your word is your word. I know that's how it works in Washington sometimes. You can say, I guess, whatever. But in upstate New York, your word is your word. And it was also important to me to show that it doesn't matter who you vote for. It doesn't matter your political party. On some basic issues of right and wrong and fairness, we're all in this thing together. And at a time where our country is so divided, we've got to start doing that work for each other. So I introduced a bill. It's called the Honor Farmers Contracts Act. I'll give you one guess what it does. And I kicked and screamed in the Agriculture Committee about this. Last week, I got the Secretary of Agriculture under oath in the committee to commit to me that those contracts were turned back on and we got his money back for him. It's not the thing that's going to show up on the cable news. I've had a lot of people in my first 5 months say, Josh, we want you doing more cable news and, you know, the whole celebrity thing. In upstate New York, we're not show horses, we're workhorses. And that's what you sent me to Washington to do, to roll up my sleeves. And that's not going to be like the big fancy flashy thing, but I guarantee you reaching out to communities that have been sold out like that and doing that work for them, that's the sort of stuff we got to do to save democracy. So pick our battles, fight them with everything we got. We could talk all day about stories like that we've done. I also think it's really, really important in this moment with everything that's happening to take a step back and appreciate how we got into this mess in the first place. A lot of people talk about concerns about democracy, right? I believe in my heart and soul that you cannot have a strong democracy without a strong middle class. And our middle class has been gutted in this country for the last 40 years. I mean, we talked about terrible trade deals that hollowed out industrial towns across upstate New York. We know it better than anybody in this room and across this district what happened when the economic elites and the political establishment sold us out, looked down on us, ignored us. Wages haven't gone up in 40 years. Folks I talk to working harder than ever and falling further and further behind because they haven't gotten a raise. They're working hard. Their wages aren't going up. You know what is going up? The NYSEG bills, the Central Hudson bills, the National Grid bills, the grocery bills, the health insurance premiums. Costs are going up and families are getting squeezed. And you know who's not getting squeezed? You know who's doing just great? Are these big corporations, the monopolies, the companies that ship the jobs overseas, the Wall Street hedge funds that made that happen. They're doing great. And then what they do is they take a whole bunch of that money they've accumulated at our expense here in upstate New York, and they go off and they buy lobbyists and they buy corporate PACs and they buy super PACs, and then they set the agenda in Albany and Washington, and folks in places like upstate New York get left further and further behind because nobody's fighting for them. I went to Congress to fight for them. And it's no wonder in this moment that so many folks across our community and across our country looked at that system and said, this has got to change. This has got to change. I don't talk so much about saving democracy as I talk about changing it so that it'll actually work for people. So I've done a lot of legislation on things like I told you about my bill to lower egg prices. Really proud of that. I've got a bill to, what we're going to do, it's bipartisan. What we're going to do is have the trades come in and weatherize homes, which is good jobs for the trades. It's going to save you $400 a year on your utility bill, money going back into your pocket, not to the utility companies. I've got there's a community down in Wurtsboro, down in Sullivan County, where they're redoing the highway. Route 17 is turning into Route 86, and as part of that, Albany wants to shut down exit 114, which is the only exit into town. Y'all have seen cars. I've seen cars about 20 times in the last year because of Pato. That would devastate that town. So I showed up. I spent half a day down there visiting all the small businesses, all the shops, and saying, hey, let's build a plan together to save this exit. And I had people tell me, Josh, what are you doing, man? You're focused on the egg prices and the utility prices and exit 114 in Wurtsboro, and democracy is at stake. I'm focusing on your kitchen table issues because democracy is at stake. We have to show that democracy can actually work for people and not just for the special interests. I'm sorry this is a long answer, but I promise this is the last thing I'm going to say. You asked what you can do in this moment. And I don't want you to take for granted how important it is that you came out tonight. I go out to events and meetings all over the district, and I will tell you, I am as hopeful and optimistic about upstate New York and our country today as I was when I went into politics. And I know that sounds crazy, given everything that's happening across the country, but I want to share with you a perspective that I have the benefit of having traveling across 178 towns across upstate New York. When we face moments of adversity, you basically have two choices. You can cower in the face of it, or you can take it on. I'd be terrified if we called this town hall and I showed up tonight and there was nobody here. You could be hiding under your bed, but you're not. You're here because you care and you want to do something about it. So I meant it what I said at the top. You know, we had to decide whether to go forward tonight. We're not going to be intimidated and we're not going to be scared. So continue to do what you're doing. Continue to hold me accountable and ask me tough questions, and continue to make sure you're reaching out to our office because that's where we do the best work, is when you come to us with challenges that we can help you solve. Thank you.
Hi, I'm over here.
I can't. Hey.
I'm Logan.
Hi, Logan.
I'm from Oneonta.
Great.
I actually moved here quite recently, and everyone has been wonderful. I wanted to ask about something you voted in support of, and of course, many things get voted on all the time, so I don't want to just name drop it and not have you know what it is. It's HR 488. It was, in my very simple synopsis, take it with a grain of salt, is talking about supporting not only our police force, but also our federal police forces, including ICE. And so, of course, you've already spoken about your thoughts and opinions, but according to what I read, it said that you had voted in support of this. And I just wanted to know if maybe I was misinformed or what the background behind that was.
Thank you. Thanks, Logan. Logan, did you say you just moved to Oneonta? Where'd you move from, if you don't mind me asking? Which county? Albany County or? Oh, beautiful. Welcome to New York 19, man. I'm happy to have you. I appreciate you asking that question. You know, it's funny. I was actually out this morning. I went to the coffee shop down the street, and somebody there actually asked me the exact same question. And so I know it's on the minds of some folks, and I appreciate the opportunity to clarify what that was about. So I didn't know the bill just based on the HR number, but once you described it, I know what you're talking about. So this was actually a resolution to condemn the anti-Semitic terrorist attack in Boulder just a couple of weeks ago. That's what that resolution was about. And it was really important to me to stand with our Jewish community because anti-Semitism is completely unacceptable. Nobody in this country should be targeted because of how they pray. One of the things that makes this country so beautiful and why we love it so much is because we have such a diversity of religions. I see it in my own family. My father-in-law is Sikh. My mother-in-law was Catholic. My brother-in-law decided none of that worked for him, so he converted to Orthodox Judaism. My theory is basically Jesus take the wheel. Only in America does that happen. So we had, so the resolution came forward, and it was 18 paragraphs, and almost all of it was condemning the terrorist attack. And look, we are in a moment where since October 7th, we've had a 360% increase in anti-Semitic violence in this country. And so I'm going to stand with our Jewish neighbors in condemning that terrorist attack. Now, what you've read is the very last sentence of the bill had some language about local law enforcement and ICE. And I'll tell you, I'll be candid with you, I don't think that belonged in that resolution. And especially given everything that's happening around the country, but it was included in the resolution. And I don't want to be cynical, but I think it's exactly for this reason. Because the information that's come out about that resolution ever since hasn't been, hey, Josh is standing with our Jewish community and condemning anti-Semitic terrorist attacks. It's been questions about that one sentence out of 18. And so I hope that context is helpful. And I really do appreciate you asking the question because I've gotten the question quite a bit. So thank you.
So you know the old adage about time flies when you're
I also talk too long
well,
sometimes.
we're getting close. So we might have to make this our final.
Couple more, maybe one or two more. Couple more.
Right.
Couple. Okay.
So the next question is from Jessica C. from Bainbridge. If you would please stand. Thank you. And then following Jessica, Jeff S. from Endicott. Would you raise?
Hey, we got an Endicott person. I love it.
Aha. Okay. Thank you, sir.
While the mic's going around, can I tell a quick story? Do I have time? I'll do a real quick story. So, oh no, go ahead. You got the mic. I'll tell a story later. Okay.
Hi, I'm Jessica from Bainbridge, and one thing that's really affecting me personally that I would like clarification on, if you have it, is how do you, as a congressman, plan on helping keep programs like Head Start active in New York State? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, we talked a bit earlier about the administration's proposal to dismantle the Department of Education. We talked about efforts to dismantle Job Corps. Head Start in this district, even before this administration, the Head Start program in Sullivan County was closed down suddenly. And this is just another example of this country having its priorities completely backward. I mean, how stupid is it for the politicians in Washington to take money away from something like Head Start, which is not just one of the best investments you can make for kids in their early childhood, but it also lets mom and dad go to work. Yeah. I don't know why this stuff is so complicated in Washington. And, you know, I had one of the biggest honors I've had since I got elected was State of the Union back in February. And I invited, actually, she might even be here. Is Sadie here? Sadie, it's good to see you. Do you mind if I share your story? Okay. So Sadie is my hero. Sadie put herself through school as a single mom and now works for the ARC and is also in the National Guard. And she has the cutest little, how old's Mabin now? 3-year-old Mabin. And she was able to do all of this because of things like Head Start. Mabin has a safe place to go. So he's learning, he's thriving, he's making friends, he's part of the community. Great for Mabin, also great for Sadie, because she gets to go and pursue her career and pursue her dreams. And so this is another issue, very well aware of it. Had a lot of people come to our office with the same question that you have. And I promise you, I'm going to fight like hell to keep it open. Thanks, Sadie. I heard you were here.
Hi, Josh.
Hi, Jeff. How
How
are
you
you?
doing? Since the present administration got appointed and sworn into office, and what they've been doing, I've been very afraid about democracy itself. My wife and I and many of other people have gone to all kinds of rallies this weekends past. But what I haven't heard is from the National Democratic Party. Are you aware of any committee which is putting together some sort of plan or platform that people can hold on to and give them some hope that the Democratic Party is organized and working to defeat the things that are going on now and preserve our democracy?
Yeah. So my approach to this job is not based on political parties. I am very frustrated with the National Democratic Party. I think the party has, in a lot of ways, become pretty out of touch with communities like ours in rural America. And I think it has some very serious problems. I'm not going to speak to the National Democratic Party, the National Republican Party, or even, frankly, nationally, but I'll talk to you all day about what we can do here in upstate New York, Democrats and Republicans and independents, to get our country back on the right track. And I think a lot of it goes back to what I was talking about earlier, which is that, and I don't think this is a partisan issue. I don't think this is a Democratic or Republican issue. It's that our political system and our economic system are so corrupt in this country. Let me give just one example that we came up earlier today is the utility companies. The utility companies today, whether you're on NYSEG or you're on Central Hudson or National Grid, I'm actually not sure, but Central Hudson and NYSEG, they're owned by foreign national corporations. Those foreign national corporations don't care about. I've caught myself in committee hearings more times than you can. My buddies from high school are like, Josh, you're going to slip up one of these days. They don't care about your pocketbook. They care about their profits. It's the only thing they care about is their profits. And in a functioning democracy, what should happen is that all of you, all of us, should have just as much power as them. One person, one vote. That should mean something. But what happens instead is they accumulate so much money that they're taken out of your pocket and they use it to rig the system. They use it to buy off politicians to do what's best for them instead of what's best for us. And I don't care if you're a Democrat working on a dairy farm in upstate New York or a Republican working in a factory in upstate New York, you've seen it happen to you over the last 40 years. You've seen the big ag monopolies gobble up all the farms and make it impossible for you to get to market and make a profit. You've seen good jobs shipped overseas because all that stuff is good for the special interests. It's good for the monopolies. It's good for Wall Street. And it's really bad for folks in upstate New York. So my approach to this, I ran for Congress and I said, I'm going to do things differently. I'm not going to take the corporate PAC money. I'm going to push for term limits. I'm going to try to ban politicians from trading stocks. I'm going to end the gerrymandering. And we need that kind of structural reform in our democracy so that it shows that it actually works for people instead of selling people out and putting them in a situation where they want to just completely overhaul it. Thank you, Jeff, for the question. Appreciate it. One more. Can we do one more? Do people have time? Can we do one more? Is that okay? Yeah, one more. Okay, I'll tell a story while Paul's picking a question. So after I got elected, one of the first things you have to do is pick your committee assignments. And some of you have heard me tell this before. Bear with me. You pick your committee assignments. And so, and it's really important. You have to kind of talk to other people, some of your new colleagues. These are the committees that I want. And so what I did was I sat down, and my chief advisor spent like hours with him. My chief advisor is Patricio, my 5-year-old. And I sat down with him and I said, Pato, what committees should dad be on? And he said, what's a committee? So I explained it to him. And then we went through all the committees in Congress, told him what they all were, what they did, try explaining Ways and Means to a 5-year-old. And we got to the end of it and he said, Dad, I want to do the one with the rocket ships. So we got on the Science and Space and Technology Committee, and the one with the farm animals. And so we got on the Ag Committee. So I think I'm doing the dad thing okay. All right, I think we have time for one more question.
All right, this will be our final question for the evening from Nancy P. from Treadwell.
Hey, let's see. Hi.
You see? Good. All right, thank you.
Treadwell, Delaware County, Franklin? Yeah, okay, yeah.
Sorry.
You're good.
Nancy, and I'm a retired school teacher.
Uh,
So with the apparent dismantling of the education department, what is the plan for public education, and is it viable to assume teachers are safe in their careers?
Thank you. What did you teach, Nancy, if you don't mind me asking? Math? Oh, beautiful. Okay, cool. So we talked a little bit earlier about public education and the attempted dismantling of the Department of Education. I mean, I told you I'm a proud UE Tiger through and through. My sister's a public school teacher up in the North Country. When I got sworn in, you know who I asked to swear me in was my 2nd grade teacher. So this is near and dear to my heart. And I told you already about the litigation I'm involved in to keep the Department of Education open. I'll tell you one of the other questions I've been getting a lot. This is a little bit of a tangent, but bear with me. One of the questions I've been getting a lot is like, Josh, it's great that you're involved in all this litigation to fight back, but what happens when the president ignores the court orders? So just 2 weeks ago, I introduced a bill to give the federal courts more tools and resources to enforce their orders. You can't be the party of law and order when you won't follow the court orders telling you to follow the law. So I want to, but I want to kind of similarly, when I got a question twice, I want to tell you not just what I'm against, but I want to tell you what I'm for. I think that's really important. So my view is that public education is the way people have a fair shot at the American dream in this country. And so I want to see us investing more in public education and more in teachers. The number, this is probably your experience too, but one of the things that ticks me off to no end is when I talk to teachers who tell me they've got to come out of their own pockets for the pizza party, for the school supplies, to help kids out who need an extra pair of sneakers or rain boots or a winter coat. What the hell are we doing in this country when teachers who are already underpaid, already overworked, are the ones who are going into their own pockets to make sure kids have the basic things they need to learn? What are we doing? So we should surge resources into our public schools. And I also think, and we talked a lot about early childhood education too, I also think we got to rethink the way we're doing higher education in this country, because for folks who want to get a 4-year degree, that's great. But a 4-year degree and all the debt that often comes with it should not be the price of admission to the middle class. we're gonna get one of this is my dream. We are gonna have a whole bunch of really, really good manufacturing jobs around here, building semiconductors, doing aerospace manufacturing, building batteries, and we're gonna need a whole bunch of people trained up to fill those jobs. So I have legislation that would take the Pell Grant system and say, look, if you want to go get a career technical education, you can use your Pell Grant for that too, because a college degree shouldn't be the way to get into the middle class. Okay, I think I'm being told I have to get back home. So I want to say, do I get to say like a closing here? Is that how this works? Okay, cool. I want to end where I started. Like it is the privilege of my life to be able to represent this congressional district, to be able to represent home, to be able to represent 178 towns and people with all kinds of different views on all different kinds of things. Okay. We're not going to agree on everything. That might be clear from tonight. But there are some basic upstate New York values that I think are more important than political leanings and political positions at this moment. And the way I was raised was you don't really care that much about political party. What you care about is, do you work really hard and are you decent to people? It's really simple. And right now, this country needs that more than ever. I think the challenges we are facing right now as a country are not going to be solved by a bunch of politicians tearing people apart in Washington. They're going to be solved by communities like this, places like upstate New York, and we cannot lose sight of that in this moment. So I'm so grateful to all of you for coming out. I'm so grateful to all of you for working together to do all this great work with me, and drive home safely. And I'll see you at the next one. I appreciate y'all. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
As you plan to exit the building, I just want you to make sure that you look around for all of your belongings, anything that may have been misplaced. Also, we have plenty of staffers here. If you'd like some follow-up, they will take your name and your contact information. It's been a pleasure. Have a good evening.